Big breaking news here in PDL Week 4, as I am now coaching this season after all. Shadow, the founder of this league, has unfortunately had to step away from his duties as coach of the Alaskan Absols. I think it's just another case of, real life taking priority over a Discord draft league, so it is kind of sad to see, but if he's dealing with more important things, then it is what it is. All the best to him. Hopefully he'll still be hanging around. But he did offer me his spot with the team, and I have accepted. I am not the sole coach of the Absols. As I think has come up before in this series, the team has 2 coaches this season. I have replaced one of them, and so I am one of 2 co-coaches now. And we're still figuring out exactly how we're going to share responsibilities. I will not necessarily be playing every week, but I will at least be playing some weeks. I think I'm playing this week, although that's not quite scheduled yet at the time that I'm recording this. I'm recording this part a little earlier than usual to help me with the adjustment. But yeah, that's how it's going to be. As far as what that means for the videos, I've really been enjoying covering the entire league in the way that I have and watching and commentating over all of the replays. So I think I'm going to continue to do that for this season. I don't think it's something I would do every season. I think next season, if I'm back coaching my own team from the start, reviving the Halifax Masquerade Men, then probably I don't do this approach again. But I think given that it's what I've been doing this season and I've been enjoying it, we're going to try to see it out all the way through. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit different. I think I'll probably still record live commentary, at least for the weeks that I play. And I'll just put that in the video along with the post commentary of the other replays. If my co-coach plays some week, I'll probably just put their replays in the list like I have been doing. But yeah, live commentary of my own sets will probably be a thing. And up to now, I've been covering the sets in the chronological order of which they're played. I'll probably still do that, except if I'm going to be on one particular team here, the Alaskan Absols, especially if it has a different commentating style sometimes, I think I'm probably going to put the Absols first every week from now on. But otherwise, we'll stick to chronological order. And hopefully, we'll see how it works. Hopefully, we can blend these styles together pretty smoothly. It'll be an interesting experiment, but again, not necessarily something I repeat in future seasons. In any case, with all that said, since we are going to keep roughly the same style of video going, let's move on to the standings heading into Week 4. Our Absols are, of course, in last place right now, but we'll see what we can do to work on that. At the top of the standings, we have now just 2 undefeated teams, the Flatland Flat Sands and the Dallas Dragapults. They do play each other, I believe, in Week 6. I checked a while ago, and then I was distracted from checking again by all the other goings-on in this league. So if they stay undefeated up to that point, that's going to be a matchup to watch for sure. But for now, we'll just see if they can keep it going. And then, to the extent possible after 3 weeks, there's still a big cluster of teams in the middle, and everybody's still in this for sure, which you love to see in a league like this one, especially when you're trying to still be in it. Now, I thought that this was going to be the first week of the season that I had no trades to report. For a good while, there were none at all. However, that was before I partially took over a team. I was given the opportunity to make changes, and my opponent for this week graciously gave the okay to the changes just kicking in this week, even though I made them in the middle of the week. So there are 3 trades to cover, and they're all Alaskan Absols trades. They are all my idea, but they're not necessarily my original plan. I pitched a few ideas to the co-coach, and we worked out something that we both agreed on. And it starts with something extremely rare in the PDL, which is a free agent trade that does not use a free agent roster slot. This Umbreon swap for Reuniclus would normally be against the league rules, but because there was a coach replacement mid-season, I was given the opportunity to swap out 1 A-tier Pokemon. And I've been saying for a while that I think this team needs more power, that in its original form, it looked like it was relying pretty heavily on Baxcalibur and Primarina to win games, and it needed to sort of diversify that offensive power some more. So dropping Baxcalibur made no sense to me. On the other hand, with apologies to Shadow, because I think Umbreon is his favorite Pokemon, and I think that's why it's on this team, I didn't really see a place for it here. Especially with Incineroar already being on the team, a lot of the value that Umbreon brings is kind of covered, or just not really what I think this team needs. So I've swapped it out for Reuniclus. I said last week when the team picked up Dusclops that it looked like they were going for a better Trick Room setter, and that makes sense when there's really not much speed control on this team except Trick Room. So I thought it best to lean into the Trick Room game plan some more, go in more of a hard Trick Room direction with this team. And if I need more Trick Room offense and I need more power in general, I think Reuniclus is a pretty solid Pokemon to handle that. Actually, one of my first thoughts was to pick up Rhyperior and then Electros in the C tier and go for a Discquake game plan, but then I looked ahead at the upcoming matchups in the schedule, and that just didn't really look very strong into any of them. Reuniclus, on the other hand, bringing Psychic coverage to help cover for some of Baxcalibur's and Primarina's weaknesses, does look very strong into some of the upcoming matchups. So I figured that was the better way to go, but I also figured that just picking up a Psychic type wasn't enough. This team was also going to need a Fighting type to round out its coverage some more, to help cover for the Steel types that give trouble to Reuniclus and Baxcalibur, make it a little easier to deal with opposing Dark types. I figured a Fighting type attacker was important, and we couldn't really, there wasn't really room with the current state of this roster to get kind of a premier offensive Fighting type. So after talking it over with my co-coach for a while, our second trade of the week is to swap out Clodsire for Hitmonchan. I thought Clodsire was a pretty interesting Pokemon. It definitely complements the Trick Room mode, and it could run like setup or a weakness policy tech even to get off some big offense, like I think we saw someone do last season with Clodsire. It also gets Unaware and Haze, although we still have Haze with Primarina at least. But yeah, I think, just as I think a Psychic type is very helpful into some of the upcoming matchups, we do play the Marvelous Bridge Malamars and all their Dark types this week. We have some other opponents whose teams are heavy on Dark and Steel types. I'm trying to cover for the weaknesses and coverage from the likes of Baxcalibur, Primarina to an extent, at least in this, as a Fairy type attacker, and the newly picked up Reuniclus. So I figured a Fighting type was kind of important to round this core out. And Hitmonchan, I mean, we're dealing with a C-tier Pokemon here. Hitmonchan is not the best, but it's actually pretty solid. It has two very good abilities, or at least it should be. It has two very good abilities in Iron Fist and Inner Focus, which can either buff its damage or make it harder for an opponent to shut it down, depending on the matchup. It has pretty solid coverage. It has a lot of good Fighting type attacks. It even gets like Wide Guard and moves like Wide Guard and Feint to support the team. I think it gets Fake Out itself as well. So there's a lot that Hitmonchan can do. Hopefully we find the right things that it can do well. The stats are obviously not amazing, but I'm fairly optimistic for this Pokemon, and I think it, like I said, I think it complements the core pieces in ways that we're going to need in some matchups. Finally, I don't love this last trade just because I really liked the Beldum meme, and I was looking forward to Shadow hopefully putting in some work with Beldum some week, but again, Shadow has had to step away, and now that I'm coaching this team, I do want to extract whatever value I can get, even out of an untiered slot. So I have dropped Beldum and picked up Magby. Again, we can only afford an untiered Pokemon here, so you're not going to get much for that. The other one that I was considering was Cutiefly, which, like Ribombee, gets the combination of Shield Dust and Tailwind, so we would at least have some Tailwind support on this team. Even though I've leaned harder into a Trick Room game plan, Tailwind can be a nice option to at least have, but I think Magby brings a little more utility to this team. Obviously, the main things with Magby, as they are with Magmar, are first, Follow Me, and second, being able to fish for burns with Flame Body and maybe even like Will-O-Wisp if we can get that off. I think Follow Me support is potentially very important to this team. It can... I mean, at this point, every opponent is going to be bringing answers to Trick Room, and having that redirection option available can make it a little easier to get that Trick Room off in situations where we need it. It also, of course, can create openings for Baxcalibur or Primarina or something to get off that one big clutch attack that they need, or even a setup attack on any one of the attackers. I think it takes I think having Follow Me available will take a lot of pressure off the teammates, at least in some weeks, even if Magby, being frail and weak, can only get the move off once. Fishing for burns is always nice as well. And then I think Magby has a couple of other tricks up its sleeve, at least I hope so, but I'm not going to talk about those right now because hopefully I'll get a chance to use them before the season is over. If I don't, maybe I'll talk about them whenever this team is eliminated. But overall, add it all up, and Cutiefly does one thing pretty well for an untiered Pokemon, but I think Magby brings more value to the table overall and is a little bit more versatile in what I can do with it. And so that's the lineup right now. Incineroar, Baxcalibur, Primarina, Dusclops, Sarina, Reuniclus, Girafarig, Snover, Hitmonchan, Bastrodon, and Magby. Definitely a team that's going to take me some getting used to, but I do believe that I will be taking my first crack at it this week against Think Boy, the defending champ, who beat me in the PDL final last season, and his melodic Miraidon. We'll probably cut to that battle right now, but either way, let's get going on week 4. All right, first live commentary of the season. Good luck, have fun. So, I've brought Terra Fairy, Iron Defense, Body Press, Bastardon, Terra Poison, Baxcalibur, Never Melt Ice to throw off strong Icy Wind, not Icy Winds, Ice Shards, and a bunch of attacks. Trick Room, Dusclops, Terra Grass, with Gravity to set up for the Focus Blast Reuniclus. Safety Goggles, Incineroar. Yeah, we got basic Reuniclus, and I'll explain the Primarina in a bit, but I'm on the timer here. Dragapult, Magmar, Bruxish, Gallade, Vivillon, Glamora. Okay, I am worried about the Glamora. I do feel a little bit underprepared for it, but I'm just going to try Dusclops Reuniclus first. I'll bring the Terra Steel Primarina, I think, and let's just bring back Excalibur game 1 and see what that gets us. They turn the timer off. Okay, it's Mirror Herb Primarina. This is a silly late night idea I had last night, but it's Mirror Herb Primarina so that if they go for Quiver Dance with the Vivillon, or the Ribombee, which they didn't bring, but with the Vivillon, then I could copy their Quiver Dance boosts. Yeah, that's the idea there. Psychic to help cover for the Glamora and the Sneasler, which they also didn't bring. Okay, so they let Gallade and Dragapult. I don't know if they have Night Slash on the Gallade, but I'll just try to set Trick Room with Dusclops and protect Reuniclus. They just go right for Shadow Ball into Reuniclus. It's Terra Fighting. Oh, they get the Rock Slide flinch. That's unbelievable. What do I do here? Well, if that's what they're going for with Gallade, and I'm really only afraid of the Dragapult, so I'm just going to try again to set Trick Room, and I will go Terra and Psychic into Dragapult. Or Fighting, Psychic into Dragapult. That Shadow Ball still does a lot. It's Life Orb, Magic Guard, Reuniclus. That does a lot too, but and the Gallade shows that it can change moves. It's not locked into Rock Slide or anything, so that's a real problem as well. I guess what I can do is Nightshade Dragapult. Might KO at this range, we'll find out, and just throw off a Psychic into Gallade and then try to figure out the rest of their team from there. That doesn't even do half. But they're still focused on attacking Dusclops for some reason, so that much is good. Of course, now the Vivillon can get me with Rage Powder. I don't really have any safe switch in. Let's just double into Gallade. And if they redirect, then yeah, okay. Then I double into Vivillon instead. At least I knock something out. They take out Reuniclus here. I'll get Primarina in. The Glamora, not ideal. I'll just double target that. Try to get rid of it. And I'll cover for Wide Guard by using Psychic into Primarina. Oh, that does also cover for the Grass Terra to an extent. Or Psychic into the Glamora. But I think I'm just going to lose to Gallade at this point. I'll try not to. I meant to try to burn the Gallade a while ago, and then I caught up in throwing Nightshades into things. At this point, maybe I should have saved Will-O-Wisp for game 2. Although, the Dragapult is low, and the Gallade is burned, so I might actually still win this. I do think it's possible. I'll go for another Trick Room, and I'll go for Ice Shard into Dragapult. Yeah, we pick up the Dragapult with that Ice Shard. Take a Sacred Sword. And here, with Trick Room up, I'll just go for Nightshade and another Ice Shard. And we actually... the Ice Shard crits are unreal, but I don't know how much they matter. Baxcalibur is very strong. And I'd get the Nightshade off next anyway. But we do actually take Game 1. So we'll jump to Game 2 now. I honestly kind of want to try the Bastrodon in Game 2. They might bring Bruxish to cover for that Ice Shard. I don't know. Reuniclus wasn't as strong as I hoped in Game 1, although I do think I still bring it. I actually think I'm just going to lead Bastrodon Dusclops, or do this order. I'll bring Reuniclus, and probably Primarina. I could bring Incineroar. No, I think Primarina. They lead Magmar Dragapult. It specs Dragapult. Which is not ideal when I've brought physically bulky Bastrodon. I can just Metal Burst. Let's just click Metal Burst. Why not? And I'll go for Trick Room. Ah, they switch out, so that's why not. They also have Taunt. Magmar makes sense. I can just start throwing off Nightshades, I guess. Or I can switch to Primarina. I can just start throwing off Nightshades. And I'm gonna go for the Terra Fairy Iron Defense. It'd be pretty cool if I can win this game with Bastrodon. That Sacred Sword is still doing a fair bit through the Fairy typing, though. I also have to be worried about Flame Body, but I mean, let's try to get off Body Press if we can. Taunt Bastrodon, as I kind of figured they would. But good damage into Gallade. Let's try this pair of attacks again. Yeah, Bastrodon is getting worn down, but we will KO the Gallade this turn. That's a bit of a relief for Reuniclus in the back. The Dragapult is a problem, though, because it's not been letting me get Trick Room up. And, I mean, I can either switch Primarina in or just potentially sack Dusclops. I think I have to live with the possibility of losing Dusclops here. And I'll try again to get a Metal Burst, but... Oh, Bastrodon does survive, actually. Oh, but it doesn't survive the double up. Okay. Dragapult's locked into Shadow Ball, so I don't really feel safe to bring Reuniclus in. I guess that means I bring in Primarina. But what I'll try to do is protect Primarina this turn and KO Magmar so that I don't have to worry about the Follow Me. I think there's a good chance that they attack into Primarina. They could also switch either one of their Pokemon. Wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing. Okay, it's Terra Fire Dragapult, so just as well that I didn't Moonblast it this turn. Magmar does go down. Now, the Glamora is a problem in the back. I mean, I think they can either KO Primarina or stop my Trick Room, but I don't think they can do both. Actually, maybe I should switch Primarina out to Reuniclus and try to win with Hyper Voice in the late game. But I don't think so, because I think this just loses if they attack Dusclops. Okay, double into Primarina? Yeah. Might have worked out if I'd still had my Terra, but I'm just going to lose now, I think. But let's go down swinging. We actually should be able to beat Dragapult with Nightshade and Psychic. I misclicked. Oh no, I'm going to lose to a misclick. That's really unfortunate. Okay. I lose game 2 to a misclick. Maybe I would have lost it anyway, I don't know. But yeah, I meant to use Nightshade instead of Will-O-Wisp into the Dragapult there. That's really unfortunate. Okay. They didn't bring Bruxish still, so I think I go back to Baxcalibur in this game. I also have the Incineroar option, but I don't really see it into the Glimmora stuff. Let's just lead Dusclops Primarina this time, with Reuniclus and Baxcalibur in the back. Yeah, I really meant to click Nightshade into that Dragapult, and I don't know. It's possible then that I can beat Glimmora from there. Anyway, no use dwelling on it, as they once again lead to stop Trick Room. I kind of want to throw off a Will-O-Wisp into the Gallade, but that doesn't work if they just taunt me. So I'll just go for Nightshade into Gallade. Click Hyper Voice. I guess I could have Moonblasted Gallade there. Yeah, I didn't think that all the way through. Another Nightshade should KO from here, though. I mean, it will KO if it stays in. Okay, well, it uses Protect. That's fair enough. I have a relatively safe switch to Reuniclus here to preserve the Primarina. Although I don't know what I do about this Dragapult next. Taunt wears off, but they can bring Magmar right back in, yeah. I think Terra fighting Reuniclus is probably the answer again. Does it even take a Shadow Ball after I do that? Oh, I hope so. Yeah, fingers crossed. They go for Dusclops, okay. And they taunt Reuniclus. But that does mean I KO the Magmar. We'll see what their last Pokemon is. I have a feeling that I'm not going to like it. Yeah, it is the Glimmora again, which is what I meant by that. I'll protect Primarina here and try to KO the Glimmora with Psychic. They still have their Terra, right? So it could be the Terra Grass Glimmora again. If they Shadow Ball Reuniclus, I don't know that it takes one. So I might be throwing some momentum away by protecting Primarina here, but we'll see. If I can get a big hit into Glimmora, then maybe I can win it with Baxcalibur in the endgame, but it is pretty dicey. Okay, they Shadow Ball Primarina. So Reuniclus does get an attack off, and they don't Terra. We land the Psychic into Glimmora. I don't know if the crit matters, and I think we can beat Dragapult from here. Chip it, get Baxcalibur in. Is this my first time beating Thick Boy? Maybe so. I guess I should have seen the Terra coming and gone for Hyper Voice instead of Moonblast. Wow, we get the special attack drop though. And that's pretty big. I'm just going to go for Hyper Voice and Glaive Rush. Primarina goes down, but Baxcalibur will take the final KO for this week. And that was a fun set. We got the Absols in the win column. This team's still a little rough around the edges. Of course, I'm just starting to get used to it now, and I threw this team together pretty hastily last night, but I think we showed a bit of what it can do here. And yeah, assuming that I've structured the video the way that I think I will, that was my set this week, and now we'll cut to the others. Okay, time for the replays, and at time of recording, the Send It Sandshrews and Flatland Flat Sands have not yet played their set. I think one of the players was having power and or internet issues, so they'll play soon and get into next week's video like we've seen before. That means we start off this week with Mobile Mudkips versus Marvelous Bridge Malamars. This one was played very early in the week. It might be a distant memory to these players if they watch this, but let's see what we've got here. On the Malamars side, we see a couple of Pokemon that have really stood out to me so far this season in the Meganium and the Zoroark, but then they also brought the Miraidon, which I don't remember whether we've seen that before, but I definitely don't know what it's going to do. They have the Slowbro Zoroark combo again, so they can bluff Trick Room or a slow mode with another slow Pokemon and set Zoroark up to take KOs. They actually could do the thing again where they use Explosion with Metagross and then Zoroark picks up weakened Pokemon. But they also might be working toward a Metagross game plan, given that they don't have a ton of offensive power apart from it. I don't know. We'll see. On the Mudkip side, I see the Ampharos just kind of standing there rocking back and forth. I don't know what that's going to do in this matchup, although, of course, it can hit the Mandibuzz and Slowbro hard, so it might make sense just as a reasonably strong electric type to bring it here. They've toned down the ground spam just a little bit, but they still have Garchomp and Crocodile available to pair with a Talonflame, which could create trouble for the Metagross. Although maybe the Meganium is here in part to get in the way of those ground types, though it is weak to Talonflame. Then they have the Scizor, which is very strong into all the Dark and Psychic types on the other side, and the Gardevoir rounding things out. Yeah, the Scizor is definitely a threat, but it might have to watch out for something like a Flamethrower Zoroark or a Flamethrower Slowbro even. I think Miraidon gets Fire Fang. There are definitely ways that the Malamars can play around it, but let's see what happens. You see Garchomp and Talonflame lead right off the bat against Mandibuzz and Slowbro. Talonflame just switching out for Ampharos, so Ampharos now is in with its offensive coverage. No Tailwind, but they probably don't need it. I mean, you're not going to set Tailwind for your Slowbro, I don't think. Maybe the Mandibuzz sets Tailwind for something in the back. Or maybe we were about to find out that this is Zoroark, but the Garchomp just goes right for a Swords Dance, as it is the real Slowbro setting Trick Room. Scizor coming in on the Ice Beam is a good switch there. They get rid of the Mandibuzz. So yeah, the Ampharos is pretty well positioned here, but now we see the Miraidon with Intimidate. We see the Terra Water Slowbro. Miraidon chips Ampharos, but does get itself poisoned, or paralyzed. Slowbro gets the burn on Scizor, and Slowbro drops to a Thunderbolt. So the Ampharos really has been putting in work so far, as they get Talonflame in here on Metagross and paralyzed Miraidon. Full para. Ampharos avoids the Psychic Fangs, and Talonflame just rips a Flare Blitz into Metagross and knocks it out. So, yeah, the Mudkips have just dominated this first game here, and the Ampharos actually has played a key part in it, but they didn't set Tailwind. Their opponent got Trick Room instead, but it hasn't mattered much so far. And the Scizor didn't even have to put in work. It showed up. Did the Scizor KO anything? No. No, the Scizor showed up, got burned. Didn't matter. Pivoted around. Ampharos took the KOs. And Talonflame covered what it couldn't. Even if you bring the Meganium in the next game, the Talonflame is going to hit that hard too if it's hitting this Metagross so hard. We'll just see how this one wraps up. As the Foul Play Miraidon is a cool attack. That's actually going to hit very hard into a lot of this team. Well, yeah, I mean, it hit the Talonflame pretty hard there, and then Scizor and Garchomp. That's half the team. But the Ampharos did so much work with Thunderbolt and Volt Switch. We don't know its last move. Don't know whether it has any possible coverage for the Meganium, but yeah, it just ran away with this one. So you have to bring a different game plan if you're the Malamars next game. I don't think you can bring the same 4 Pokemon because they seem to just lose to this. But let's see. As it's now Scizor, Ampharos lead in Game 2 against Mandibuzz and Metagross. Terra Ice Metagross, okay. Feather Dance on the Mandibuzz. That's a very cool attack. So they brought a few different ways to weaken the Scizor, knowing what a threat it is into, again, a team full of Dark and Psychic types. Yeah, I really like that Feather Dance Mandibuzz. And we see that his Choice Band Metagross goes for an Ice Punch into Ampharos, doesn't do that much without its Choice Band. And of course, Ice Punch is not that strong an attack, and Ampharos is only a Dragon type when it's Mega Evolved. It might not be obvious at a glance, but its design is based on a Dragon, and always has been. But it's just a pure Electric type without Mega Evolution, so I think Psychic Fangs... Does Psychic Fangs have higher base power than Ice Punch? I think it does. So it would have been stronger there, and you don't have to use your Terra. As it is, Ampharos takes less than half from the Ice Punch, and is able to start racking up damage again, although here it just goes for a Volt Switch into the Mandibuzz, and that doesn't KO, like Thunderbolt was doing in Game 1. They get Gardevoir in, and Ampharos comes right back. Terra Fire on the Gardevoir, picks up the Metagross pretty easily. Now we see Mightyena, but no Intimidate, which means it's not Mightyena, it's Zoroark, and sure enough, here comes... I didn't pause in time, here comes the fast Dark Pulse, which gets the flinch on Gardevoir. Foul Play's not doing much to Ampharos because it's not a physical attacker. Gets rid of the Mandibuzz here. The Scizor's back. Now there's the real Mightyena. Now there's the Intimidate. And look at that. How often do you see two Mightyena on the field in something like, in a VGC style format? Obviously it's a draft league, but the double Mightyena is so cool. So they're pivoting some more. They get Talonflame in here. But Ampharos drops to that Zoroark. And then Talonflame knocks it down to its Sash, but it does have a Sash, so it holds on for now. And picks up the Scizor with Flamethrower. So the Zoroark was not at all subtle this time. It was very obvious what it was as soon as it switched in. I do also like the Foul Play KO into Talonflame again. But it picked... It in a set that was getting away from them quickly, because they just didn't have much to cover the Electric type on the other side. The Zoroark came in, was faster than anything else, and it just cleaned up. And they left Slowbro behind this time, so they didn't play toward Trick Room. They just brought in a fast Pokemon that the opponent didn't necessarily expect. If you're the Mudkips, maybe you go back to a Tailwind game plan in Game 3, but yeah, we'll see if they do that. Ampharos again with Talonflame. Okay, makes sense. Against Metagross, and this is the real Mightyena. It has Intimidate. Not necessarily the real Metagross. No, it's not Metagross, because we know that the Metagross is Terra Ice. So that Fire Terra there means it's Zoroark for sure. Gets the Helping Hand for Mightyena, and that Flamethrower does pretty good damage to Ampharos. It's another case where, unless you're covering for a switch... Oh, maybe they were... Yeah, maybe that's what they were doing earlier. I questioned the Ice Punch into Ampharos, but maybe they were trying to cover for a Ground type coming in. Against what? Metagross and Mandibuzz? That makes some sense. And here maybe they're covering for the Scizor. Yeah, because if you're Mudkips, you might want to preserve Ampharos. Pivot something in that's not too afraid of these Pokemon. Although honestly, the Scizor might have to be afraid of the Mightyena, because those Foul Plays hit hard. But yeah, the Terra Fire Flamethrower does a lot of damage though. The Ampharos is going to have a hard time running away with this one again. There is still no Tailwind on the Mudkips side, so the Zoroark seems to be faster than anything else. We'll see if this Garchomp could pull it back. As Ampharos Volt switches out into the Mightyena, so Metagross's Sash is... Zoroark's Sash is not even broken. It will be now by this... Okay, they do get Tailwind, and the Earthquake now will break the Zoroark's Sash. But it still gets a chance to attack. This is pretty good damage to Talonflame. And they brought the Slowbro again this game, so they're going to play toward Trick Room now so in Game 1 they played a Trick Room game plan that really didn't work out. In Game 2 they ditched Trick Room to go fast with Zoroark. In Game 3 it looks like, I mean, depending on what the Slowbro does here, maybe they went fast with Zoroark in the early game, but then also brought back the Trick Room to take advantage of the opponent's Tailwind. That's an interesting... Yeah, you can't taunt the Slowbro. That's an interesting approach. And it looks like it pays off for them, as the Zoroark, of course, now will be slower than the other Pokemon because of their opponent's own Tailwind, which I even said that I thought they might need here. Zoroark and Slowbro just KO the 2 Pokemon in front of them. As the Mudkips are left trying to stall out the last turn of their own Tailwind. They do manage to do that pretty effectively. They get rid of the Gardevoir there, or they get rid of the Slowbro. But there's nothing really to threaten. Did they use their Terra already this game? Huh. I was gonna say there's nothing really to threaten Metagross. What could threaten it is Terra Fire Gardevoir. But, and I don't think they've terrestrialized yet in Game 3. But the Gardevoir focuses on taking out the Zoroark instead. Maybe it still thinks it can beat Metagross in the end game with the Fire Terra. Maybe it can. Yeah, there's the Fire Terra. But it goes for Energy Ball. It must be choice locked. And the Energy Ball doesn't do enough damage. The Metagross takes 2 hits and KOs back through the defensive Terra type. Okay, I need to think for a second about what happened there. Close set. Fun one for sure. Some wild speed control games and Zoroark bluffs, but... Oh, the Gardevoir locked into Energy Ball to beat the Slowbro. That's what it was. That's why I didn't just lock into Fire Attack to beat Zoroark. It was already... I think it had to be choice locked. You don't just click Energy Ball into the Metagross if you're not choice locked. So it was kind of stuck against the Slowbro. If it KO'd that, then it was weakening itself against the rest of the team. Or against the Metagross, at least. So... yeah, well, hey, that's the downside to choice items sometimes. And the Scizor doesn't even come to this game, having to watch out for Foul Play, Feather Dance, Scald. The Malamars covered for that really well. And, yeah, I was even saying going into Game 3 that I thought the Mudkips should maybe bring back the Tailwind game plan. But that got completely turned around on them. they and I were maybe wrong about that one. Anyway. On to our second set for now, which is Boston Biblically Accurate Maushold versus Cecil Samurotts. Biblically Accurate Maushold, again bringing the Maushold and Primeape. I highlight them every time they show up, and I don't know that they're actually going to put in work together. We also see the Meowstic and Flapple again, so possible Gravity, Gravapple plays again. Well, maybe even the Thunder and Hydro Pump Rotom again to go with Gravity. And then the Hisuian Decidueye, I don't necessarily know what it does here, but it's strong into some of these Pokemon on the other side. On the Samurott side, let's see. Looks like some Tail Room stuff again. Pretty typical of what we've seen from this team, I think. You can set Trick Room with Farigiraf to get Skeledirge or Hydrapple going. You can set Tailwind with Kilowattrel if that's more advantageous. The Decidueye on the other side is a possible Tailwind setter as well. Salazzle is Fast Disruption, Low Kicks. I mean, we saw the downside of locking that into First Impression, I think, last week. But yeah, we'll see what they do. As it's Meowstic and Rotom against Salazzle and Farigiraf. And the Meowstic just goes right for Psychic Noise, which does about 3/4 to Salazzle. Farigiraf goes for Imprison. Do they think that... I don't think Spooky sets Trick Room here, so is the Farigiraf trying to steal something else? I don't know. Does Farigiraf get Gravity? That would be kind of funny, but no. Well, I don't know if it gets it or not, but it doesn't have it, as the Maushold does set Gravity here. I think that means those Electro Webs won't miss. The Decidueye switching in on a First Impression takes a lot of damage, but it survives the turn even after the Dazzling Gleam follow-up. On the other hand, that Hydro Pump now connecting in Gravity is pretty funny to watch. As Salazzle gives Rotom a chance to KO it with Thunderbolt. So no Thunder this time, I guess. Just plain old Thunderbolt. A little safer. We see now the Electric Terra as the Hydrapple comes in. Makes a Psychic Noise. An Electro Web. I mean, the Hydrapple double resists the electric attack, so Of course, it also double resists water. It kind of just walls Rotom, which takes a bunch from that Fickle Beam. And there's the Trick Room setup now from the Samurotts. So the Hydrapple is able to just go wild. Even surviving the Triple Arrows crit. And it's Meowstic and Flapple in the back. Not really surprising, considering the Gravity game plan to see the Flapple, but it just drops to Fickle Beam from its cousin there. The Hydrapple surviving just long enough to do the damage that it needs, and the Farigiraf being slower than Meowstic and Trick Room finishes the job. So, yeah, that was an interesting game. That definitely kind of showcased some Pokemon and strategies I don't see very often, but basically the Rotom was able to get going in the early game, but then it was completely walled, I think. Electro Web, Hydro Pump, Thunderbolt. We haven't seen its last move, but we know it's Terra Electric, so it doesn't have, like, Ice Terra Blast or something. The Hydrapple was able to completely wall it, and the Samurotts could just calmly set Trick Room, and again, Hydrapple did exactly enough damage before dropping to its own Life Orb that Farigiraf was able to close the game out. So I don't know how Spooky adjusts for Hydrapple in Game 2. If you have a way to deny Trick Room, I don't know what that would be, though. Maybe like Taunt on Maushold or something. Then, I mean, the Flapple can threaten the Hydrapple instead of the other way around. But, yeah, we'll just have to see. As it's Farigiraf's Skeledirge lead now against Meowstic and Rotom. So the Skeledirge, if you do start with like a Flapple or Decidueye game plan, then the Skeledirge comes in and threatens that right away. Instead, we do see the Rotom again, force the Skeledirge out, but yeah, I don't think it can. The Hydro Pump crit on Farigiraf is pretty good there, but I don't think it can do anything to Hydrapple. And Samurotts, instead of playing patiently toward a late game Trick Room here, just go right for the Trick Room immediately in Game 2. And now they have both of their slow attackers in. See the Terra Electric. Rotom does turn off its grass weakness. So that Giga Drain after the berry is not even threatening a 2-hit KO, but it does just blast the Skeledirge out of there. Low Kicks, of course. Low Kicks is cool to bring in here, of course, with the first impression priority. It can pressure Rotom even under Trick Room, and then Hydrapple will probably finish it off, I think. Actually, it goes for Fickle Beam into Decidueye. Maybe they thought that Rotom would be KO'd by that first impression. It was close, but they do lose Low Kicks to that. And we see the Fairy Terra Blast on Hydrapple. That does turn off its water and electric resistances. But I think the Farigiraf is just going to finish Rotom off here. I think you play it. That's why you play it this way. And the Decidueye is not holding up to that Fairy Terra Blast. That's an interesting tech. That's a really interesting tech. Because, of course, it threatens Decidueye and Primeape if they play a Primeape game plan at some point. But also, it turns things around again on the Flapple. Even if the speed control game doesn't go their way, the Flapple is going to have difficulty with, you know, breaking through the Fairy Terra. Showing it here might not even be ideal, although it gets rid of the Decidueye, so I don't think you're complaining if you're a Panda. But yeah, we see the Meowstic Flapple in the back again. Flapple protecting through the last Trick Room turn, but Meowstic not really able to do a lot offensively. But the Grav Apple, yeah, I guess that's the downside to the Fairy Terra when they used it, as Spooky knows now they can just click the Grav Apple into Hydrapple safely, and that does so much damage without the resistances and under gravity that the Flapple is able to clean this game up. I also accidentally smacked my mic somewhere in the middle of that, so sorry if that was audible. Yeah, it's interesting. Spooky has gone for straightforward, fast, offensive game plans under gravity, and Panda has gone for Trick Room in both games. And in both games, the player who got going early ended up losing because the other player was able to get the setup they wanted in the late game and clean it up. Panda going for Trick Room in the late game in Game 1 meant that this Flapple wasn't able to do much. Panda going for Trick Room right away in Game 2 I thought made sense, kept the pressure up, but it did mean that Spooky was able to get through the Trick Room turns, even with the surprise of the Fairy Hydrapple and Flapple was able to close it out in the end. I think if you're Panda, maybe you go back to the late game Trick Room in Game 3, and you still have the Hydrapple walling the Rotom. Maybe Spooky can keep the pressure up by pivoting Meowstic out and getting Rotom and Hydrapple in together, or Rotom and Flapple in together. But it is, at that point, kind of tricky positioning. But I don't know what's going to happen, and there's only one way to find out, and that's to watch Game 3. So we see Lokix lead next to Kilowattrel. Interesting. Against Primeape and Maushold. So no matter what, both players are bringing very different game plans to this one. Everything I just said about adjusting, trying to make the margins from the earlier games work in your favor is out the window, as yeah, we see Pokemon that we have not seen before in this set. Lokix is the only one returning so far. And it just goes right for the Dark Terra, as does Primeape. Knockoff one-shots the Maushold. Primeape goes for Bulk Up. If it was supposed to take a beat up there, it's not going to. As, yeah, Panda, instead of changing the timing on the Trick Room, just goes right for the Tailwind game plan this time. And starts ripping through Spooky's team with the Lokix, which I guess must have Tinted Lens if that knockoff did so much to Primeape through +1 defense and Eviolite. Tinted Lens, of course, boosting the damage of resisted attacks. I don't know how Lokix is going to take this Drain Punch right now. Well, yeah, that's about what I expected. But so the Primeape does get healthy again, has a Meowstic next to it, but now Hydrapple is here under Tailwind this time. We see the Air Cutter on Kilowattrel. That's a cool attack. Of course, not being very strong, but hitting both targets. That's a fun little interaction there. The Mental Herb, of course, supposed to protect Kilowattrel from a taunt from, say, the Maushold or something. But I guess I've always thought of Mental Herb as just the taunt breaker item, but I guess it breaks a variety of effects, as we see it there. Remove the heal block from the Mental Herb. From the Psychic Noise. I might have to look up what Mental Herb does before the next set. We see the Gravity setup, but the Primeape is so pressured under Tailwind here. It just drops to the double up from Kilowattrel and Hydrapple, and now the Farigiraf is in just as the Tailwind ends, so they can set Trick Room if they want. Farigiraf takes that Hydro Pump, just goes right for Dazzling Gleam. Wait, the Psychic Noise actually coming through there, as the Hydrapple has Giga Drain for its grass coverage into Rotom. I didn't think of that. I'm gonna say Heal Block is an effect that I've maybe not thought about enough myself, as we see the Hydrapple there unable to click Giga Drain because it's a healing move as well as a damaging one. But it just pivots out. And Kilowattrel is able to do some damage with the Air Cutter. I think it would drop to a Psychic Noise here, but instead they go Psychic Noise into Farigiraf. Ooh, the Volt Absorb Kilowattrel. That's another funny interaction. That one was spoiled for me by the Discord. I did see people talking about it. But normally Electroweb there would have healed the Kilowattrel because of Volt Absorb, but because of the heal block, it still gets the electric immunity, but it doesn't get the recovery. So I still don't know that the Electroweb really accomplished much of anything, but they didn't heal the opponent, at least. A lot of the downside is gone. And Panda at this point is just slowly chipping these Pokemon down with the spread moves, as we do see the Air Cutter finish off Meowstic there. And Spooky is down to just Rotom, which is just not going to beat Hydrapple, so we know how this one's going. It can't even heal block the Hydrapple anymore, so it does get to Giga Drain and finish Rotom off. But yeah, there were a lot of funny Psychic Noise interactions in that game, so that's entertaining. Yeah, Spooky going to the Maushold Primeape mode. I guess trying to quickly pressure another slow mode from Panda, but Panda mixing it up really well, bringing the Tailwind in Game 3, and then still having the Trick Room in the back, and timing that speed control very nicely there. And the Hydrapple was, I mean, we saw it drop to the Gravapple in that one game, but for the most part, it was kind of a matchup nightmare for what Spooky brought here, as we saw. I mean, maybe if it had taken a population bomb or something, it would have played out differently, but it was always positioned to avoid that kind of thing. And I'm just going to look up what Mental Herb does before we move on. It cures the holder of Infatuation, and from Generation 5 onward, other mental effects. So I guess Heal Block is classed as a mental effect? Yeah, I guess so. Alright, cool. Now, third set for now. Third set of replays for this week is Big Time Sand Rush versus Drago's Strongest Warrior. On the Sand Rush side, we again see the Ice Q and Flamigo. I would like to see +6 Flamigo at some point. That would be funny. There's not a ton of the usual power that we see from them on the rest of this team. The Tauros is, of course, strong into the Sand team on the other side. I'm not at all surprised to see that here. The Palmet being a fighting type as well. Actually, yeah, it's just a bunch of Sand Dancers on a lot of this team. They got the Tauros with its water and fighting coverage, rock resist. The Palmet, rock resist, fighting coverage. The Tinkaton, rock resist. Able to throw off a big Gigaton hammer into something like Tyranitar, or, I mean, even Cacturn would want to take it. Or Comfey. Yeah, the Tyranitar Comfey game plans are definitely pressured by Tinkaton. And then I don't know what the Dracloak does here, but maybe we'll find out. And on the other side, it is Tyranitar Comfey stuff again. It is Zebstrika speed control, maybe. That's how I've come to think of Zebstrika at this point. But of course, Zebstrika also can pressure the Tauros, though it can't as effectively pressure the Palmet, especially if that is running Volt Absorb. So that's going to be interesting to position. Cacturn, I'm interested to see what it can do. I don't necessarily know why they brought it, but it is another fighting weakness as well. So Cacturn, yeah, this looks like a tough matchup for Cacturn. We might not see it come to a game. Grookey can help with the passive healing game plan. I don't necessarily know what it does otherwise. And then Corviknight. Corviknight might be interesting if it can get set up with Mirror Armor. It can turn back and Intimidate from the Tauros. It can be hard to break with this very physically offensive team from Robbie. But of course, it does have to watch out for the Palmet and to an extent the Ice Cube if that gets set up. But Corviknight could be important to this matchup. But let's see. We got Zebstrika and Grookey leading. I'm honestly a little surprised to see the Grookey against Palmet and Dracloak. Palmet gets faked out and Dracloak taunted, so that looks like a good turn one for Drago. As we do see the Electro Web speed control from the Zebstrika, and we see that the Palmet does not have Volt Absorb this week. That's good to know. It's slowly getting chipped down. Here's the Comfey. But the Zebstrika just drops through close combat. So slowly chipping the Palmet down and starting to look a bit less valuable. As we see, I wasn't the only person to bring Nightshade this week. The Dracloak getting some decent damage into the Comfey with it. Tyranitar comes in here. It has to be afraid of the close combat, but I mean the Palmet, after already taking a close combat drop, probably has to be afraid of Priority Draining Kiss from the Comfey. So I think we see Palmet pivot out here to what I'm not sure, maybe Tinkaton. And we'll see how the Tyranitar can deal with that. That's Ice Cube instead of Tinkaton. Of course, Ice Face doesn't block Draining Kiss because that is a special attack, but Dracloak just gets dropped by that knockoff from Tyranitar. So no more pressure from... I mean, we didn't really see what the Dracloak could do since it got taunted, but... Okay, I missed that it had Dragon Dance. That's interesting. But whatever it was trying to do, it's not going to do this game. We see the Stellar Terra on Palmet now. And the flying on Tyranitar. And Palmet just goes right for Double Shock into Comfey. Now, since it's Terra Stellar... If I remember correctly, that means it won't be able to use Double Shock again. At least without switching out. I think if it were Electric Terra, it can, but if it's Stellar, it can't. This is also something that's been discussed on the Discord. In fact, before this week. I think I'm remembering that correctly. In any case, the Flying Tyranitar is up against Ice Cube with Ice Face still intact. So while Palmet might not be an offensive threat to Tyranitar immediately, the Ice Cube I think kind of is. Palmet just drops anyway. But... yeah, Ice Cube is just looking to win the game here, setting up the belly drum. It still has Ice Face intact. We know that Grookey is the last Pokemon for Drago. The Ice Face blocking the Fake Out does mean that Tyranitar has a chance to attack here, actually. as we see the reaction from Robbie in chat, but instead of taking out the Ice Cube, also we see it's not Co-Star Flamigo, by the way. Much to my disappointment. I mean, I don't know what the strategically best choice is there. I just would like to see +6 Flamigo at some point this season. It's funny. Yeah, but letting the Ice Cube take that fake out, maybe you don't have Protect, which does seem like kind of an oversight on Robbie's part, but in any case, the Tyranitar had a chance to get rid of the +6 Ice Cube there. But I guess it didn't matter. Right. Well, no, it did matter. Tyranitar's Terrestrialized. Flamigo probably can't just one-shot it. So I think doubling into Ice Cube... Well, maybe they thought Ice Cube would protect. I mean, I thought Ice Cube would protect. And they saw the opportunity to pick up Flamigo there. But it does backfire as the Ice Cube survives the turn and gets to finish Tyranitar off. Forgot I Terra'd and was more scared of Bird than Ice Cube. Okay, so that answers that. Yeah, I thought maybe they were covering for a Protect on the Ice Cube. But... yeah, the Ice Cube really got off the hook there. Over to game 2. And we'll see if Robbie can pull something like that off again. We see Zebstrika and Cacturn lead against Dracloak and Tinkaton. I really don't know what the Cacturn is going to do here. That Fake Out does a fair bit to Zebstrika, actually. As the Dracloak does not have Clear Body. Maybe it has Cursed Body. That could be pretty dangerous. But we see the Will-O-Wisp into Cacturn, which uses Lash Out. I don't know how Lash Out works, but it's not doing enough damage after that Will-O-Wisp. The Dracloak has shown what? Nightshade, Will-O-Wisp, Dragon Dance? I don't know what is going on with this set. But we're not about to find out, as it does get KO'd. And the Tinkaton going for Smackdown into the Zebstrika. Yeah, I don't understand some of these sets. They might be too... they might be a bit too heat for me. Smackdown, of course, is a fairly weak Rock-type attack that does also cause ungrounded Pokemon to become grounded. But I don't know what the follow-up is to that on this team. We see the Cacturn pivot out here to Comfey. We see the Stellar Palmet again, just going for Mach Punch into Zebstrika, which protects around it. But the Comfey gets knocked out by Tinkaton Hammer. Tyranitar comes in here. Is it going to Terra again? It is. Going for the Flying Terra. Zebstrika should drop to the sand damage here from its own team. Does get one more Electro Web off. And Palmet, this time, takes the Flying Terra Blast. Although... not going to survive much longer. Tinkaton, of course, unable to use Gigaton Hammer 2 turns in a row because it works like Blood Moon. Goes for a Brick Break into the Tyranitar instead. Good thing the Tyranitar Terra'd around that. Or the Tyranitar's part. But that Mach Punch... the Palmet's probably... it's Palmet choiced? It's playing... I think it's playing like a choice. Well... I don't know. The Mach Punch picks up the Cacturn. I'm not going to second guess it too much. Tyranitar KO's Tinkaton, so we won't see another Gigaton Hammer here. Palmet does survive another turn, and the Ice Cube is back in, but it doesn't even get a chance to set up as the Double Shock finishes Tyranitar off, so Palmet not choiced. The Mach Punch just made sense to pick up Tyranitar's teammates, and then the Ice Cube in the back could beat Tyranitar, is what was going on there, because there was no Grookey Fake Out to break its Ice Face this time, as the Cacturn... yeah, I was a little skeptical of the Cacturn in this matchup. It did take down the Dracloak, but... the Palmet was able to clean up. I mean, yeah, the duo of Palmet and Tinkaton was able to clean up all the teammates and just ignore the Terraflying Tyranitar. Palmet in the end finished Tyranitar off, but Ice Cube would have if it hadn't been able to. Now we move on to Dallas Dragapults versus Azure Bay Chatots. So, let's see here. The Dragapults bring Pelipper, Basculegion, This time with Raichu as well. If we see Thunder from Raichu, that'll be pretty exciting. They also have two very little unevolved Pokemon in Riolu and Bronzor. Riolu, of course, able to give coaching boosts to whatever you want, probably Basculegion or Rillaboom. And once again, I don't necessarily know what the Bronzor does here. But they're up against, I mean, maybe he set Trick Room in an opponent's Tailwind if the situation is right. They are up against the Squawkabilly. I do see it on the other side there. And then Chatots tried to bring their rain answers in Magnezone, Ludicolo, Gyarados to an extent. Gyarados with Intimidate can also help cover for Rillaboom and Hawlucha's game plans to an extent, which we've seen from the Dragapults before. Of course, it does have to watch out for Raichu. And then the Venomoth. And the Kingambit is just a strong Pokemon that can help them cover for threats like Basculegion and Rillaboom, actually. Kingambit's biggest fear here, Hawlucha, has not come to this set. I don't necessarily know what the Venomoth is for, but let's get right into it as we see Venomoth and Squawkabilly against Raichu and Pelipper. If the Raichu is just going to throw off Thunders, this isn't a bad time to start, but we see Fake Out into Venomoth. And Squawkabilly sets Tailwind. Does Venomoth get Shield Dust? It does, but this one doesn't have it. Probably has Tinted Lens. But the Pelipper sets Tailwind as well. So Tailwind on both sides. It's Thunderbolt from the Raichu. Doesn't quite KO Squawkabilly, so Thunder would have. But we see the Parting Shot into Pelipper. That's okay, I guess. As it does help the Venomoth take that Hurricane and get Sleep Powder into Raichu. Alright. So an interesting positional game so far. Kingambit trades some damage with Pelipper. I think Pelipper. I think if you're the Dragapults, you're happy with that. I think getting damage on the Kingambit is more valuable. For whatever you have in the back. Although you might want to think at this point about preserving Pelipper to get Rain back up if you have Basculegion. Kingambit tried to Sucker Punch, I guess, into Pelipper on its Protect. And yeah, here Pelipper might want to switch out. Instead, Raichu switches out. Oh, they both do. Okay. We see it's Basculegion and Rillaboom in the back. Rillaboom taking a fair bit of damage from that Iron Head, but there's no grassy terrain. It's Overgrow Rillaboom? I don't know whether that's intentional. But we see the Terra Grass Basculegion surviving a Sucker Punch. And an Icy Wind. No rain on the field, but the Woodhammer one-shots Ludicolo at the cost of Rillaboom. And the Wave Crash crit, wouldn't bet the crit mattered. Takes down Kingambit. So without even having rain on the board, Dragapults are able to just clean up with their strong attackers in the back. And then pivot them out, right? But it doesn't really matter. Raichu will finish off the Squawkabilly. Yeah, so they just, even with the Pelipper taking the Parting Shot, their opponent tried to pivot around. They just traded damage into the Kingambit, and then, yeah, these strong attackers in the back didn't even need Rain or Grassy Surge to get the damage that they needed for Raichu to finish the game off. So that's going to be hard for Mario Man to deal with in Game 2. You bring the Magnezone here. I mean, the Magnezone helps to cover for some of these Pokemon, but you can't Thunderbolt the Pelipper if it has Lightning Rod Raichu next to it. Magnezone isn't especially able to take boosted water attacks from Basculegion and Pelipper, so I don't know that that is the answer. You can bring Gyarados, but that has to watch out for the Raichu. So the Raichu is positioned really well in this set. What we're learning is the Raichu is just positioned very well to make life hard for the Chatots. Maybe you need to get Ludicolo in earlier and get some chances to get some damage off with it, and we do actually see Ludicolo leading next to Magnezone against Raichu and Rillaboom, so no Rain turn 1 this time, as Ludicolo instead... Oh, Swords Dance Rillaboom, okay. Instead, the Ludicolo is just under heavy pressure already. And, I mean, the Magnezone is offensively strong into some of this team, but not with Raichu there, and it's really threatened by some of the other Pokemon. It switches out to Gyarados, but they just Thunderbolt that slot. Gyarados is gone. So calling that one out pretty well, I think. And then the Ludicolo will get off an Icy Wind, but there's no way it takes a Wood Hammer. No. The Reflect does not save it there. So I guess knowing that Rillaboom is KOing Ludicolo if it stays in, you're pretty free to just attack the other slot with Raichu. And they do catch the Gyarados coming in. Now we got Magnezone and Kingambit behind a Reflect, so that does look pretty strong, but if it's high horsepower Rillaboom, I mean, I think it'll take a hit. The Raichu can just Thunderbolt into the Kingambit slot if it wants, or it can switch out to Riolu. So it's not Pelipper and Basculegion in the back. High horsepower knocks the Magnezone down to its sturdy. Riolu, I was going to say Riolu might have Mach Punch to pick up the Magnezone or something. Instead it gets a big upper hand into Kingambit on the Sucker Punch. And Rillaboom will get to finish Magnezone off. That's a good tech there by Ninja Meerkat. And we see the Raichu come back now, avoiding the Sucker Punch as Riolu gets to finish Kingambit off. And we did not see either Water type on the Dragapults side in Game 2. Maybe knowing that their opponent would try to take advantage of the rain, which I think the Ludicolo Magnezone lead was definitely trying to do. But then, yeah, Raichu and Rillaboom just completely shut that down. And Riolu was great in the back into the two strong Steel types on the other side once the Gyarados was gone. That was really well played by Ninja Meerkat. Second last set of the week is Lightning Lancers versus Varsity Farmboys. On the Lancers side, we see the Hippowdon Excadrill mode. We see the Salamence. The Indeedee can lend support. So can the Alchemy. It can decorate a Salamence or an Excadrill if it wants. Honestly, decorate into Hippowdon might be good because Hippowdon's biggest weakness we've seen is just not doing enough damage. Decorate would make up for that. Of course, we've also seen the Alchemy set up and win games itself, so who knows what's going to happen. I'm really not a believer in the Crabominable so far, but maybe this is the week it proves me wrong. And on the other side, we have the Politoed Empoleon duo. We've seen them spam rain-boosted Surfs before, which could be a real threat to the Sand mode on the other side. Salamence can help cover for that to an extent, but it has to watch out for Ice attacks. So, yeah, Politoed Empoleon looks really strong here. The Ursaluna, I'm a little iffier on this team. Ursaluna is an amazing Pokemon. We've seen it put in work before. I just don't know how well it fits this team. The Garganacl can help to cover for Salamence. It can help, but actually, the Garganacl is interesting into like Alchemy setup. It's a lot harder to pull something like that off, I think, if you're being Salt Cured. Then the Bayleaf keeping its teammates healthy, and I don't know what the Vileplume does, but yeah, this does look like actually like a tough matchup for the Lancers at face value, as we see them just lead with Hippowdon and Excadrill right off the bat into Vileplume and Garganacl. I didn't talk about the Vileplume. I don't know what it does here. It doesn't have Sun support to give it Chlorophyll, so we'll see. Terra Water Garganacl. Okay, interesting. Gonna help it take that Earthquake, but not with a crit. They do just Helping Hand Earthquake, though, so their own Hippowdon takes a lot of damage. Honestly, if it's me, maybe I consider running Air Balloon Hippowdon if that's my game plan. And that's actually... It doesn't seem like that bad a game plan. The Empoleon is weak to the Earthquake. If they bring the Ninetales mode, then the Earthquake is pretty strong into that. So I really don't dislike a Helping Hand Earthquake lead, at least in game 1 here. But yeah, you're letting your Hippowdon take a lot of damage. I really would probably consider Air Balloon Hippowdon, but I don't think we've seen what its item is yet. Maybe it has something else that it can't afford to part with. The Vileplume puts Excadrill to sleep, so that's a pretty good answer to what its role is here. Garganacl tries to set up with Iron Defense. That might be too slow in this game, after it just got crit. But Excadrill being asleep and Hippowdon not doing much damage, not able to KO the Vileplume with its high horsepower there. Never mind. The Garganacl setup would be too slow, I think, if that Sleep Powder had missed, but as it is, the biggest threat on the field is neutralized. Hippowdon is not that dangerous, and they're able to just heal the Garganacl here. And it's going to be hard to break, I think, for the rest of the game, as it also just takes out Excadrill with that body press. And there aren't really any strong special attackers on the other side. Alchemy is here. Goes for Acid Armor. It probably is trying to set itself up as the special attacker on that side, but yeah, it's not going to like being Salt Cured. I mean, at least it's not a Water or Steel type, but that Salt Cure damage is still going to add up. on top of the sand damage that it takes from its teammate. And then the Politoed gets the boosted Muddy Water. The Alchemy's starting on Calm Mind, but the Salt Cure is so much pressure. I don't think it's going to take a Muddy Water here. Oh, but they actually Weather Ball into Indeedee. It's Psych Up Indeedee, copying the Alchemy's stat boost, but then not enough to take down the Garganacle, and it gets Salt Cured too. Alchemy drops here to the Salt damage. And yeah, the Farmboys just completely overwhelmed the Lancers. I do think this is a tough matchup for the Lancers, at least on the teams that these players brought. But the Vileplume, I doubted the Vileplume. It was actually clutch that game, because putting the Excadrill to sleep gave the Garganacle all the space that it needed to get going, and just shut down any possible setup mode in the back. And the Politoed came in at the right time to change the weather and overwhelm with water attacks. Even if the Hippowdon hadn't taken all that damage from its teammate, it wasn't standing up to that. So maybe that Earthquake damage into Hippowdon didn't necessarily matter, but I'm not saying that in a good way. I'm saying that Hippowdon was in a tough spot regardless. And I don't know what adjustment they have into this in Game 2, but we'll see what they can find. There's not really anything obvious to cover the Water Terror on the Garganacle, so it is free to just go for that turn 1, which I think it'll do again here against Indeedee and Salamence. Oh, it doesn't. Oh my god! So they didn't bring Sun, so the Vileplume is free to run Effect Spore instead of Chlorophyll, and we do see it paralyze the Salamence immediately in Game 2. That's crazy. Puts the Indeedee to sleep. Garganacle just going for the Iron Defense. And now Helping Hand boosted what? Salt Cure? Yep. Salamence avoiding it with the Substitute, but that's not reliable, especially when you're paralyzed. You're wearing yourself down. There's the full para on the next turn. Salt Cure does go off into Indeedee this time, so they missed a chance to land it into Salamence. The Muddy Water crit is just insult to injury, though, at this point. As the Salamence is fully paralyzed again, and the Garganacle takes it out with another crit from the Salt Cure. The Salamence got some very bad luck that turn, but in the long run, I don't know that it matters. I don't think Salamence is breaking Garganacle. A full para is something you risk if you just try to substitute around the Salt Cures, or you just wear down your own HP with the substitutes. So the Salamence got removed more quickly than it necessarily would have otherwise, but I don't know that I don't know that there was much it could do anyway. And now the Hippowdon is in. You see the Vileplume again. It is going to get KO'd by Indeedee, but Farmboys can get weather control back here. Beyond blocked by Purifying Salt there. Garganacle goes to +4. We already saw what a menace it was at +2, so it's just running away with the game here. Terra Grass Hippowdon actually turns off its rock resistance doing that, but it does resist water now. But the big thing is just the passive damage from Salt Cure, and the fact that Hippowdon doesn't do very much damage back. Excadrill comes in with its team having already lost weather control. There's the obvious Ice Beam on the Politoed. Of course, they were going to have that. We finally see the Water Terror on Garganacle, and Excadrill just drops to another Body Press. So that Garganacle just put in so much work this week. Ursaluna shows up in the back, but it doesn't matter. Garganacle is winning this one, even if Ursaluna doesn't finish it off. Didn't prep for the Iron Defense. Terra Water, Room Service. What, on Ursaluna? I don't know. But yeah, those Garganacle game plans, with the clutch support from the Sleep Powder, Pollen Puff, Vileplume, Lancers just never found an answer to that. What a set. And finally, to wrap up the week, at least at time of recording, there's one set that we'll have to drop to next week. We've got Miami Palafins versus Arctic Articunos. The Palafins bringing the duo of Klefki and Archaludon once again, but also a couple of possible Sun-boosted Pokemon in Hisui and Lilligant and Cinderace. Also just a strong mix of Pokemon. You see the Oranguru, which can maybe give Trick Room support to the Archaludon. And then, I don't know what Cryogonal is here for, but freeze dry coverage is pretty strong into this other team, actually, as the only Pokemon here not weak to it is the Blazebreed Tauros. Blazebreed Tauros makes sense, threatening fighting type damage into... Well, our Chaldon is the biggest threat, but it is also kind of their Cryogonal answer. And then just a solid mix of Pokemon. A lot of bulk here supported by the Sinistcha, and I don't know what the Electrode does here, but we'll see. We get the Tauros and Goodra in against Klefki and our Chaldon. Is it just right for a rain setup? Or screens? Ooh, oh wow, okay. Terra Flying our Chaldon covers the fighting weakness, but then we see Terra Electric Tauros. Is it just going to throw off a Wild Charge? They do get Rain up. Flare Blitz into Klefki doesn't KO through the rain, and Tauros actually does a lot of recoil damage to itself. But it does take that Electro Shot, thanks to the electric typing. The Draco Meteor from Goodra, just strong hits flying around here, as the Archaludon is worn down a bit, and we see that it doesn't have stamina. Tauros goes for another Flare Blitz, though, instead of something like a Wild Charge, so maybe it's choice locked. That does give our Chaldon another chance to go for an Electro Shot, as Goodra finishes off the Klefki with a Thunderbolt. Our Chaldon is, at this point, of course, very weakened, and Goodra gets the healing from Sinistcha there. But, Pollen Puff from the Lilligant. Trico may be missing a chance there to take down the Archaludon. Honestly, the game could turn on that. We'll see. As, yeah, the... Well, okay. Doesn't take too much from the stat-dropped Thunderbolt, but they do get the Thunderbolt Para. Sinistcha keeping itself healthy with Strength Sap is pretty good too. Maybe Trico can kind of bulk and para through this, but I think it's a lot safer if you took the chance to KO the Archaludon a few turns ago. As we see the Aura Sphere just take out Ursaluna. Matcha Gotcha is not going to do much damage. Does it burn Lilligant? Nope. And Palafins maybe not realizing that the Ursaluna would just be KO'd by that Aura Sphere, or maybe covering for a full para. That actually makes sense. The Sleep Powder. We do see a Draco Meteor miss. We do get confirmation that it's Stalwart Archaludon. Of course, we knew that already because you're not going to run... Well, actually, you could run Sturdy. I forgot that its last ability is Sturdy. That's actually plausible. But we do see that it's Stalwart because it was unaffected by the Rage Powder. Unless it can have safety goggles, but I think Stalwart is more likely. Here's the Cryogonal. Oh, that Draco Meteor just throws away the special attack boost, but I think it's worth it to take out the Goodra, as Cryogonal will probably finish Sinistcha off here. Not this turn, okay, but next turn, Archaludon gets the KO. Yeah. Yeah, Trico wore down the Archaludon a lot, but then finished off the Klefki instead of Archaludon and gave it the chance to get healthy again with a Lilligant's support. I do think the game kind of turned on that, but I don't think Trico will do that again. So let's see how the Palafins can keep the Archaludon healthy, get it going again this game, or whether they go to a different game plan. As it's Tauros again, with Electrode this time, against Cinderace and Oranguru. Clear Amulet Cinderace makes sense. Just a lot of fast offense from the Articunos to start off this game. So the Oranguru might be able to turn that around on them, but on the other hand, they have a lot of pressure into it. So Palafins might have to position the Oranguru carefully. We actually see both Pokemon block the Intimidate. That's a little funny. They actually prioritize the Cinderace, take that out, but the Oranguru, instead of setting Trick Room or anything, just goes right for Hyper Voice. Tauros switching out there does seem to create another opening for a possible Trick Room. Maybe the Palafins, though, are expecting a taunt from the Electrode. Instead it's Thunder Wave. The Oranguru is paralyzed, but it just keeps going for Hyper Voice. And the Archaludon just gets off a Draco Meteor and switches out. Lets the Lilligant get paralyzed and take a ton of damage. There's the full para on Oranguru now. But Oranguru seems content to just spam Hyper Voice. If it gets one off here, that does pick up a KO, but only one. Goodra showing that special bulk. Maybe they're afraid of the Ursaluna in the back, which nicely avoids that Aura Sphere with the Ghost Terra. And almost KOs our Chaladon, and I don't think Trico is letting... Oh, the Instruct is funny, but it's just another... It's just into an immunity again. I don't think Trico is letting our Chaladon off the hook here. Although, actually, the Ursaluna protecting there means Goodra goes down. Our Chaladon survives this turn, but there is no more Lilligant to heal it anyway. So... yeah, what happened there? This was a pretty quick one. I thought for so long that the Oranguru was going to set Trick Room. And I don't know why it didn't. Who is faster between our Chaladon and Ursaluna? Min 81, Min 51. Okay, that might be why they never went for a Trick Room plan. In that case, threatening the Ursaluna in the back was big for Trico there. But they just let their Pokemon get attacked by powerful hits from Tauros. Electrode could have thrown off attacks as well. Of course, it's not that strong. But instead, their Pokemon just got paralyzed, and yeah, I mean, the Lilligant was denied a chance to do much of anything, and that meant the Archaladon didn't have the kind of support that it had in Game 1, also without the rain from Klefki. And then they didn't have Cryogonal's offense. I don't think you can bring Oranguru to this if you're not going for a Trick Room plan. I think they didn't go for a Trick Room plan because they were afraid of the Ursaluna, but in that case, I don't think you bring Oranguru to Game 3. I don't necessarily understand why Oranguru came to Game 2. But yeah, they need to find something to break through this sheer offense from the Articunos side that just smashed through in Game 2. Archaladon not able to shut them down this time. Lilligant not getting a chance to heal it after it got worn down. And we see Tauros Electrode again leading Game 3, this time against Klefki and Lilligant. It'd be interesting to see what the Lilligant does here. It actually stays in. So they're risking whatever they want to do with it again. It could get paralyzed again here. It does. Also, Tauros dodging a Klefki Thunder Wave is a little unfortunate for the Klefki, which just drops to a Flare Blitz. Triple Axle Lilligant does not get the KO into the Grass-type Hisuian Electrode. We see Cinderace protecting on its first turn in, which means it gets its Libero into the normal type. I don't know if that's necessarily what they wanted. And yeah, the paralyzed Lilligant is just so badly nerfed here. It does get to put Tauros to sleep, but our Chaladon's paralyzed. That could matter in a full para situation. But I think if you're Trico, you're fine with Electrode going down here. Because, yeah, you get more offense onto the field. Just buy your Tauros a chance to wake up. Avoid the Draco Meteor. The Lilligant is fully paralyzed, and that Flare Blitz with the Klefki just clicked Thunder Wave and got KO'd turn 1. That means no Rain Dance, and that means that Flare Blitz does so much damage into our Chaladon. And if Ursaluna just goes for like a Hyper Voice here, the Lilligant gets no chance to heal our Chaladon again, right? Oh, wait. The Lilligant still goes faster actually, but it sets Rain Dance instead of healing our Chaladon. And the Ursaluna does take both Pokemon out, and I don't think Cinderace is going to be able to beat both of these Pokemon. I'm actually pretty underwhelmed by that Sucker Punch damage into the Ghost-type Ursaluna. I would have thought that would do more. But yeah, the Goodra in the back is too strong and bulky, and I guess the Ursaluna is as well. But yeah, they tried to go for an offensive mode with Lilligant, but they still let Lilligant get paralyzed. It did take out the Electrode eventually, but the timing actually benefited Trico because I think the Electrode was really not running much offensive power at all. I'm not confident that it even had an attack. You would think so, but I don't think it ever showed one. So KOing the Electrode actually benefited Trico because they were able to get strong Pokemon in to finish the job into the paralyzed Pokemon on the other side with Thunder Waves into both Archaladon and Lilligant. The Lilligant still had a chance to try to do something, but the Rain Dance was too little too late. And so the Arctic Articunos take this one. I usually say, I've forgotten to say so far, so I'll say now, Reckless Trico does have a YouTube channel called Reckless Trico, where you can watch a first-person perspective, live commentary on this site. In fact, they've been doing this longer in this league than I have, so definitely go check that out. But that is week 4 so far. My debut in Season 6. A win for the Alaskan Absols, more importantly than anything else. and just another round of fun PDL gameplay. And with that, I believe we are at the halfway point in the regular season. So only 4 weeks of regular season left, and then however long the playoffs will be. It feels like it's flying by. We'll see you next time for week 5.